think let's have some fun.
Yeah, I'm for it. So we are introducing a new segment on the show, and we're calling it the Single Comma Club. The Single Comma Club talks to people like us. We were kind of sitting around and we were thinking, man, there's a ton of podcasts that talk to guys like Elon Musk and fucking whoever runs Google now, Sundar Pichai, and, Gruber's got all the fucking Apple executives that are billionaires and talking about Apple stuff. Wouldn't it be cool if you could talk to some people that were more like you or us, the folks that aren't billionaires yet? And specifically, we thought, we would talk to people that kind of do what we do. We write apps, we write internet stuff, have a good time, see if we can learn anything from their experiences. And we thought, who should we start with? Well, we tried to reach out to the founder of YouPorn and RedTube, but they were unavailable. They'll be in a subsequent episode of the show. So what we did is we reached out to the founder of a little app called Codekit. Now, I know what you're thinking. No, not me. We talked to the guy who stole my name and created a QR scanning app for iOS with my name. Kind of got the lay of the land from him and his story. So Briquette now has that interview queued up. What we're going to do, and this is probably going to not work very well at all because it relies on very, very specific timing and expertise from the three of us to make it work. We are not known for that, as Aaron just proved with his little vacation from the show. So we'll see how this goes. But Briquette, let's play the first thing.
Well, I want to point out that we the last episode that we did was, I think, the live episode where he was a sponsor unbeknownst to him, thanks to one of our sponsors who paid for that. He subsequently, I think, stopped. He terminated the app, right?
Yeah. Now you're ruining it. We got all that in the interview. You got your fancy soundboard. Hit your fucking fancy soundboard.
Well, okay. So you just want me to go straight into the first one? Here it comes.
Yeah. Lay it on me. And before you built the app, it sounds like you built it because you had a problem that you were trying to solve, that was actually a problem for you. So were you scanning lots of codes or, QR codes or what's the deal there?
Well, I used to work at a public school. This is before I got my new few jobs in iOS development. I used to work at a public school as an IT guy, and we used to always do asset management. So it did present a bit of a problem there back when I was working there, because we had to literally go around and find every single device in the school. We had to go on the back of it, and they're all most of them iPads, so they're most in cases. So you got to take the case off, and you got to find the serial number. So I thought, a good solution to that might be barcodes. And if we put barcodes on it, it'd be good to just go scan them and have them log. So I thought maybe that could be extensible to maybe some businesses that do stock taking, that sort of thing. And yeah.
And okay, so that's Zane Carter. You're hearing Zane from Australia, and like I said, he developed this QR.
Wait, time out.
What,
Jones? How's the weather in Australia? That must have been a hell of a trip.
I don't even.
I'm here with the dad jokes. Don't worry about it.
Is that your way of finally announcing that you and Amber are having a child?
No.
Okay.
Congratulations, Amber.
I'm just gonna tell Heather that Amber is pregnant then, and we'll see how that goes.
Beautiful.
Oh God. Anyway, so Zane lives down in Australia and is a self-taught iOS developer. So just like us, no formal training. And he kind of got into it around 2014, built this app called Codekit, put it on the store, and it scans QR codes. That was the reason that he made the thing. And then I asked him, well, how did you do any kind of market research beforehand? So Briquette, second clip. So I think it is valid. Did you, before you built the app, did you try to reach out to any, schools or like the school you came from, or, find a customer for that before building the app?
Yeah, that's something I've probably learned from building this whole thing, is really nailing down your customer.
Yeah.
I had a bit of a broad idea of who might be using it, but no real solid definition. all of the sort of interaction with users I did have was done through Airport, if you've heard of Airport, which is sort of a place where you can list your iOS betas.
Okay.
I had about 200 beta testers on there, which is more beta testers than I've ever had in any of my previous apps. So Airport's a pretty good platform if you want to get lots of users really quickly.
Yeah.
And then I had them, voluntarily give up their email addresses, and I would email them every week or so, what's going on in development, what do you think Codekit could benefit from?
Yeah. And what was did you find that feedback valuable? Was it a good resource, or would you not do it again?
I would absolutely do it again. It wasn't the best example of feedback for Codekit because the people testing it weren't businesses, they were just regular consumers.
Got it.
So maybe the target audience and the people that were testing it didn't match.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a very valuable resource.
Okay, good. So my question for you two is, have you ever thought of a customer? Have you ever done like a formal marketing plan for anything that you have shipped?
For Muzzle, I just thought of you guys. So that works.
Fair. You texted us. You're like, "Hey, is this a problem?"
Yeah. I just went, "Is this funny?" And everyone said yes, and then we shipped it.
So like that's the advice I have given people for years, right? Is find a problem that you have and solve it. And if you have that problem, other people probably have that problem. And in this case, it sounds like, that didn't quite work out for Zane because he did identify a problem that he had at the school he was at. I don't know. What do you think?
I think there's several fascinating pieces here for me. So I think first one is he realized himself he had the problem, right? I actually think that's very critical, first and foremost, because you need to be passionate about what you're working on, right? So if you are passionate about solving that problem that you have experienced, that should exist then as you continue to build this thing or this business or whatever it is. That's like the first thing. So I think that's good, right? The next one is like he did discover, this is a problem. I think this is a problem probably at other facilities. I don't think he's wrong there. But the question is then how do you capture that audience? Right? How do you actually go find them? How do you, what's the best way to then reach out to all these other schools and institutions or whatever that would have the same problem? How do you even find that? That's where then, you got to move into marketer mode and get good at online advertising or whatever it is, right? That's the other one.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead, Burkett.
I was just going to say that, like, you're talking about marketing there, and I think that there is something to be said about just doing stuff, because I do sit in a lot of rooms where and talk to a lot of people, being in the startup world myself, that people like to do way more research and really, really validate things and try and do personas and all this stuff. And I think there is something to be said to just executing as well. I think you got to move both chess pieces down the board at the same time. You do have to, we have good formats for that now, right? We have A/B testing or like doing all kinds of things to validate and verify your idea and your solution to that idea or to that problem that you're trying to solve. So at the end of the day, I do like sometimes like just start writing things. Like I've built a to-do list app for myself, and I thought like this could someday be an app for somebody else, but at the same time, I don't really care. I'm building it for myself, and I showed it to the people who then wanted to use it, and I ended up not doing much with it. But like at the same time, I solved my own problem. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I kind of like the idea of just getting started.
Yeah, the other thing too for me that really, I don't know, is intriguing here is that I think a lot of people stumble into entrepreneurship in kind of two ways, right? One, you do it from the business side, right? Where you have a really good understanding of how businesses operate, what needs to happen operationally for a business to be successful. That means, okay, we have a product. Well, is that a physical product or a digital product? And we understand marketing and finances and all that kind of stuff. But then you have the other end, and I think this is where Zane falls in, and I think this is where I typically fall in too, is more you fall into it because you're an inventor, right? You just like making shit and solving problems that you encounter along the way, right? So typically that's someone that has an engineering mind, whether that's, again, software engineer or industrial engineer or whatever that is. And so as you invent things, you have to then figure out, am I doing this because I'm just passionate about creating, which is generally me, and then which ideas that I do invent are the things that I want to latch onto and then turn into a business, and then I got to change gears. How do I then approach this idea differently so I'm successful? So it sounds like he's already going down that approach with, or what he's learned from this.
Before, I think to encapsulate that idea, it's like you need both jobs and was. If you're an inventor, you either need to find a way to become partly Jobs, right? Steve Jobs, and steer things. Or if you're Wozniak, or if you're Steve Jobs, you need a Wozniak. You need somebody to invent things for you. And sometimes you can be both, and you don't need to be, you obviously as you grow a company or grow a business or grow an app, you can hire people to fill some of those roles. But that is, for a software company, those are the two ingredients. I mean, you need inventors who are passionate about the problem that they're solving, and you need somebody who actually knows how to turn that into a functional business.
Cool.
Right. So
Aaron, your point about being passionate about the thing and that being a required quality, apropos, because it is true that Zane has taken Codekit off the App Store now, and I asked him why. So, Briquette, hit that next button.
what are we on, 3?
Sure.
Yes.
So now, if I understand correctly, you have plans to just take it off the App Store. Is that right?
Yeah, it's off the App Store now.
So why? What's the reason behind that?
Well, it's not something I really had the time to maintain, and although it's got a few users that I assume are using it because they've paid for the lifetime upgrade, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But the user base is not really matching who should be using it. I had plans with other features like remotely sending barcodes from the iPad app to maybe a Mac app that corresponds to it. So you could have a fleet of iPads out there all sending codes to some central location.
Yeah.
But I didn't really want to invest any more time into it with what ended up being such a small user base.
So when did you launch the app?
Late last year.
So like late 2020, December.
Late 2020, yeah.
Okay, so it's been like 7-8 months.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my question is, and you'll have to forgive me because I don't know much about QR codes and the libraries involved and the maintenance, but it seems like the maintenance on that app would be a little lower than some other apps. So why not keep it around and go after business customers? See if you can't find a niche for it. Why just pull it down?
Yeah, well, it's not something I really had, I guess, the motivation to keep going.
Gotcha.
It's hard to keep motivation on personal projects, especially when they don't bring in much money.
Yeah.
And I think the added variable that it's, barcodes, not many people are really interested in barcodes. It's not the most exciting thing in the world.
Yeah.
Makes it a bit tough to keep developing those new features. And although it ended up pretty good, there were a bunch of bugs to do with SwiftUI that I won't get into. But SwiftUI was in a bad state when I started making it, so a lot of things ended up breaking with iOS 14 and 14.x being released. So.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, it just sounds like he, wasn't interested in the thing, and when it didn't take off and become a rocket ship right away, he had other ideas that he wanted to tackle, which I don't think is bad, because he gets on later and talks about his next app and what he's working on now. And I think, Aaron, from my experience, you have to be passionate about what you're building. Otherwise, you're just not going to, you won't sit down and buckle down and get it done.
Yeah. No, you got to live and breathe it. I mean, first and foremost, you have to want to see this thing that's in your head exist, right? And you have to spend all of your time working to getting that to exist. And then once, maybe you get to 90% of it existing, you got to then dream up the next iteration of, okay, now what does it look like? And then pursue that dream. And it's this constant, it needs to be this constant cycle of dreaming and executing and dreaming and executing. And if you're not caught up in that, then move on to the next thing.
So would you guys have made the same choice to pull it down versus, just kind of leave it run?
Well, I was going to say, besides being an after school special and saying, go after what you're passionate about and stuff, there's some practical things here. Like, I think, from a business standpoint, if he was making more money with the app than the cost to run it, then the choice should be obvious. Just keep it up. Don't do anything. Don't even maintain it. Just, because there are certain people like that. One little app may have solved something. There's a ton of little, I have like probably 1,000 apps installed on my iPhone, but there's like some that are done by little indie developers that have little bugs in them and kind of suck, but they solve that need better for me than something that's bigger or whatever. And so I think, part of it is if it made sense, he probably should have left it online. You never know when you have a resurgence or the ability to maybe pivot, right? If you have motivation later on.
Yeah.
Unless there are times where it's like if you are putting in too much work and you aren't making any money on it. But if it sounds like he was in school, so this is like a great thing to have in your portfolio to show people and show that it's still live and let your potential employers purchase it or download it and test it out. But I also curious in the fact that he did it within the last 7 to 8 months, because I feel like QR codes scanned from the iPhone app itself well before that. So it sounds like he was doing barcodes, right?
Well, it's different. Yeah, I mean, he adds another subset of features that are beyond what you can just do just with the operating system. But that is a giant struggle, is that you are competing with a feature that is built into the operating system. Yeah. I think, just a side note really quick, I did find it interesting that at the beginning of that last clip, he mentioned he's like, he didn't sound exactly sure that how many people were using it. He's like, but there are some people I think that are using it because they paid for it. And it struck me, I'm like, so this is another Codekit app that has no fucking analytics in it. Hey, if we're all concerned with privacy, good on you. But another one, all right, this one struck me also, and this struck me the first time I heard it. Yes, I've listened to this now twice, but the first time I heard it too was he mentioned that there's people using it, but not the people he intended or not the people he wanted. That one, ignoring the passion discussion that we were just having, that one also sounds a little bit of alarm bells, because I've fallen into the same issue too of not listening to the customer enough, right? To understand what should I be doing next? What it's not just about solving my problems now once I have other customers using it. It's also about solving their problems. And I just saw this video. I don't know if it leaked or whatever it was, but Jeff Bezos did a talk to Zappos when they first came on board, and he had these 3 points of things to focus on. The first one was be ruthless about customers, right? And that's again an area where I admittedly struggle. I found that very interesting that he called that out, that these weren't the people that he was intending to use it.
Well, I mean, there's Twitter and stuff. There's several examples of like things that they saw how Twitter was being used and were like, oh, well, we'll just make that a feature then, right? Like tagging people, hashtags, all that stuff. All of that was user-born ideas.
What I love about it, though, is you also got, and this is why I hate like the little meetups that you get together and you listen to people, successful people, and they're like, here's how I did it, and you can too. Because you'll also get the people that are like, quote, the Henry Ford thing that, if I listened to what my customers wanted, they would have said a faster horse, and you're like, oh, that's so clever and insightful, and I'll put that on my LinkedIn profile and share it with all of my connections.
But how do you actually
I'm a
do
dick
that?
to work with.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I did ask Zane if he had recommendations. If he were at the conference, what would he tell other people? Looking back on the whole experience, what did he learn from it? So cue that up.
So that's 5, right?
It's 4.
Okay, good.
I told you we were gonna. Looking back on the experience, what would be like your overall takeaway about the app, the process of building it, launching it? You mentioned finding a customer, doing a little bit of that ahead of time. What else would you recommend if somebody else is working on a side project, and they're thinking about launching it or, getting close to launching it? Like, what would you recommend to that person?
Well, like I said before, I think airports a really valuable resource. You get just random people that are interested in beta testing people's apps come along.
Yeah.
And although that might not be your exact target audience, you're probably bound to land on some people that will end up being actual users of your app. Something I've done now is Twitter and Reddit. So I posted on Twitter. I've now gained probably 20 followers for my next app.
Okay.
And then on I've got a list in my Notion pad of all the subreddits that probably link pretty closely to my next app. So I think really getting your stuff out there, getting some sort of following, whether it be on your social media, whatever platforms you can, and interacting with users is probably what I've taken away from this. That's something I didn't do before in any of the other apps.
Yep. So I agree completely. That was kind of my story with Codekit. Having the people that used my free app is how I launched the app and got it to actually make money. I don't know. What'd you guys think? What would you add?
Well, I didn't know about the airport thing. That's kind of cool.
I'd never heard of that
iOS,
either.
Though, but yeah, that was kind of cool. I'd also toss in there too, anybody who is starting or has ideas. Indie Hackers is a great little community to join. You can talk to other people who are building things, and they have good interviews of people who they'll show like a Stripe verified how much money they've made with their app and stuff like that. So and you can read kind of what they were doing, and they post updates. So that's another little good community to join as well.
I don't know. We originally pitched this segment as like if we had to, if Zane hired us to like retool the app or redo the marketing, what would we change? What would we do different? I don't know. What do you guys think? Is the QR code just not salvageable? Can we not save that?
QR code, probably. I would just say, like, as an independent person, that's probably, unless you have a really stellar idea of what you're going to be doing different that no one else has thought of, and it's actually clever. That's just one of those things where it's just like too many people probably trying to solve that problem, including the big boys.
Yeah.
Right. So I would just probably have. It doesn't sound like he was trying to do QR codes, which I found interesting. He was trying to do barcodes, which I would then say, like, okay, yeah, technically
all kinds of codes, barcodes, QR
yeah, it's all
codes,
kinds. Yeah, it's any
everything.
But that's not a native feature of iOS or any other thing, right? To scan barcodes. That's
true.
So that's where I would say, okay, there's something there. Like you could really solve that specific problem. But then I think that he's looking into, he has to think through who's going to be using this scanner. Like he said, people aren't really the same users aren't his target audience, right? Yeah. And so the question is, who are these people and why are they using barcodes then? Are they using it for personal inventory? And they may have found a tool like they didn't need all the inventory tools. They just needed a way to create a barcode and print it up and stick it on something for their own and goes in their own database. Like that may have been the solve. And maybe that's an easier solution. But if you don't ask people, you don't talk to them and interview your users, you're never going to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one. I mean, there's a couple things. Yeah, if you're just doing QR codes, you're competing with a whole slew of applications. If you're then scanning other codes, interesting. But then if you go too far, then you're just competing with inventory management solutions.
Right, exactly.
And then there's other things that are interesting. So I worked for a company that did like conferences and trade shows, and we used tons of different barcodes, and there's tons of pieces of software that help with scanning and listing and taking inventory and all of that kind of stuff. But I think maybe there is a solution that's a little bit, targeting kind of small to medium businesses and maybe not just the large scale warehouse type management, where it is, more targeted towards libraries, or maybe not libraries. Libraries I feel like might have a solve, but schools, or I think
you might be surprised at places that don't have a solve.
Yeah, for sure. And then you mentioned, I think Jones, you mentioned in a clip that maybe didn't make it, was like, laboratories and stuff like that, right? Or maybe there is some sort of home inventory solution. I've often thought it'd be interesting to scan inventory of everything that's in your cabinets.
Yeah. People used to do that with like their DVD collection. Or, tapes or whatever. I don't know.
It's a great use of their time.
I think you've hit on the thing that I kind of hit on, which is when I was talking to Zane, and that is that the niche he was going after was really specific, because at one end, right, you have like your private user, and they just, when they see a QR code, they scan it with the phone, the camera in the phone, and it says, hey, take me to the website, whatever. So that person's out for the app, right? They're not a target user. And then at the other end, you have like the Amazon warehouse that's got super sophisticated, probably fucking AI drone inventory management. So they're out. They're not going to use an iOS app for this. And library stuff like that is also kind of tilting towards the Amazon warehouse. So your niche is really like the club organizations or schools, churches, places that are tracking not iPads and computer equipment, because there's already solutions for that are like online. You just manage your fleet of stuff with an application, and you can control everybody's accounts and stuff. But when you have to manage stuff like overhead projectors or like flat screen TVs or carts and desks and chairs, when I was in school, there would be barcodes slapped on all that stuff, right? And the little numbers written on them so they could track where that equipment was. So that is the niche you're going after with this app, right? Like folks that are doing more than the guy scanning stuff with the camera, less than the Amazon warehouse. And I just don't know that niche is viable if it's easy enough to communicate.
I just think that there's room for simple tools still. Like Aaron was saying, that you do build too much, you start competing with other people. And like I could see somebody having their own inventory system, and it's like I just really need a way to create the barcodes and scan them, and I don't need all that other stuff, and that feeds into my system of tools. So
no, and even you could even do just a small little analysis of like, okay, how many schools are there in, let's just say he only wants to do an English native app. Okay, how many schools are there? I mean, you could find an excuse to believe that there is a very large market. The challenge is how do you find that audience? How do you actually get your product in front of their eyeballs? And that's always the interesting solve. And that's where, myself, I'm not an expert on online advertising. But even people like that is like, how often are they actually going to search on Google for that solve? How are they ever going to be made aware of that problem?
Super hard, because if you think about your average like church organizer or school organizer, they're not super tech literate anyway, and they probably have their system in place, so they're not looking for replacements, right? And
so what you have to
pound the pavement.
Yeah, if it were me, like the way you solve some of these challenges is you try to go up a few rungs if you can. So, okay, who runs a conglomerate of schools? Are there, school, whatever, like public school areas? Like, so for me, there's Denver Public Schools, which manages how many freaking schools? Maybe there's a way that you can just contact them, and then if you can sell them on the idea, then they can trickle it down to the 50 schools that they oversee.
It's not bad.
But you know how long it takes to sign off on a contract with a school to get that? Like there's layers of bureaucracy there.
No. Listen, all you do is you encrypt all their shit, and then you tell them to sign the contract, and you'll decrypt all their files. Don't worry. The FBI will do fuck all about it. You'll get away scot-free. Yeah.
All right, what's up next here?
Anyway, I asked Zane what he's doing next, his next app, and how we can reach out to him if you're interested in talking to him or just interested in following him. I think he's an up-and-coming developer, so hit number 6.
You can find me on Twitter at I am Zane Carter. I'm making a new app. It's called Flora. It's going to be an app to help you manage your garden better.
Cool.
So that's what I'm working on at the moment. If you're interested in something like that, give us a follow.
Is it available to beta test yet on airports?
Yep, it's on test flight. And like I said, I have posted all those places, Twitter, Reddit's, airport. So following that same pattern.
Well, when you're ready to launch it, reach back out and we'll do a spot for it on the show, like free of charge. Awesome. It only saves you $5 because our ads are $5.
Bargain.
We'll do it free of charge for you. So, fun fact, Heather keeps planting plants in our backyard, and they keep dying, and then she will go to Home Depot and buy more plants and plant them, and they will die. So I'm thinking about getting her this app to help with gardening.
Do you see the number of plants in my background here?
Amount.
Do you know how hard that is a job to water those? Okay, and you fucked that up. You just lost a $70 plant. Right, that fern is not happy anymore because you watered it on the wrong day.
Why did you spend $70?
Wait, so
fern?
look at your background. That's why.
I have a very nice yucca plant right here, right off screen. I just don't put my ferns. I don't display my ferns, Briquette.
Yeah, guys, people want to see the ferns, man.
Okay, so
anyways, I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, so since you have to water them, you said you're very concerned with which days do you water them. Do you have a solution that manages Do you just put it on your
yell at my
calendar? Do you have a spreadsheet?
I say these plants look like they're fucking dying and they're expensive, man. Water them.
You're ready for marriage.
Aaron gave me the thumbs up too. All right.
Anyway,
well, cool. That was a fun.
Yeah, that concludes the Single Comma Club, the introductory edition of the Single Comma Club. We're going to talk to, on a regular basis, folks that are doing cool stuff. So if that's you, or you know somebody that does, please get in touch. Let us know. We will take all comers. We're not picky, as long as you do not belong to the Trace Comas Club. We will not interview billionaires. God,
well,
could you imagine
I thought it was a little cruel and unusual punishment that you called him out on using his name. He shut down the app in response to this, and then you interviewed him on how it was to win.
Whatever.
How it was for you to win.
You built the prank site.
Could you imagine him telling
it? Site.
Yeah, could you imagine him telling his family? He's like, "Hey, I got to do an interview later." Like, about what? Oh, my app, Codekit. Who's interviewing you? The guy that builds a different Codekit. What?
I just want to turn down Elon Musk for a podcast interview someday. Just be like, nah, we don't talk to you.
That's a bad idea.
There's no way that Aaron would say no to that. Aaron would fly anywhere at a moment's notice. You know this.
Yeah, I'm in. I'll cancel the podcast.